Hi, automotive enthusiasts. Welcome to Boost Bureau. Today we're diving into one of the most striking and unconventional cars of the modern era, the BMW i8, a machine that looked like a time traveler from the future when it first appeared in 2014, and still manages to stop people in their tracks a decade later. This isn't just about horsepower numbers or acceleration times. It's about how a bold vision challenged the very definition of what a sports car could be. When BMW unveiled the i8, it wasn't trying to simply compete with Ferrari, Porsche, or Lamborghini on traditional terms. Instead, it set out to rewrite the rulebook by marrying hybrid technology, lightweight materials, and science fiction design into a package that was as daring as it was polarizing. In this video, we'll explore the story of how the i8 came to be, why it mattered so much to the automotive world, and how its legacy continues to ripple through the industry even after production ended. We'll look at the context of the early 2010s, a time when hybrids were seen as practical eco-boxes rather than desirable sports cars, and how BMW dared to ask, what if a hybrid could be thrilling, aspirational, and futuristic all at once? We'll break down the engineering choices that allowed a small three-cylinder engine to coexist with an electric motor in a carbon fiber chassis, creating performance that was more about balance and innovation than brute force. We'll also dig into the cultural impact, how the i8 became a design icon, a red carpet favorite, and a collector's conversation piece, while also facing criticisms about whether it lived up to its aggressive looks. Along the way, we'll uncover the micro-stories of the designers and engineers who fought to keep the project alive, the context of BMW's i division, and its broader push toward electrification, and the reflections on what the i8 means now that electric performance cars are taking over the stage. By the end, you'll see why the i8 wasn't just a flashy experiment, but a symbol of ambition, one that showed the world a possible future, maybe not fully realized in its own time, but undeniably influential. Stick around, because the journey of the BMW i8 is as fascinating as the car itself, and it promises to connect design dreams, technological hurdles, and cultural shifts into one unforgettable ride. The story of the BMW i8 begins long before its dramatic unveiling in 2014. To understand its arrival, we need to step back into the early 2000s, when BMW was grappling with questions about sustainability, performance, and image. Gasoline prices were volatile, environmental regulations were tightening, and competitors were beginning to experiment with hybrid technology, though often in conservative, utilitarian forms. The Prius had defined the hybrid conversation, but it spoke to efficiency and responsibility rather than passion or excitement. BMW, known for building ultimate driving machines, faced a dilemma. How could it embrace electrification without betraying its performance DNA? Micro story. In the design studios of Munich, a small team within BMW's skunk works known as Project I began sketching ideas that felt radical. Their initial mission was not to build a sports car, but to think beyond conventional combustion and ask what urban mobility could look like in a world of climate awareness and resource constraints. Out of that effort came the compact electric i3 city car, a bold, boxy experiment in carbon fiber construction. Yet alongside it, another idea simmered. What if the same lightweight structure and electric thinking were applied to something aspirational, something that made hearts race instead of simply shuttling commuters? That vision slowly crystallized into what would become the i8, Context Digest. By the late 2000s, the auto industry was caught in a storm. Global financial instability forced companies to tighten budgets, but at the same time, governments demanded cleaner technologies. Enthusiasts mocked hybrids as soulless appliances, yet manufacturers saw them as unavoidable stepping stones. Into this tension walked BMW with an audacious plan. Not just compliance, but reinvention. Where others saw hybrids as bland, BMW wanted them to be sexy, futuristic, and desirable. Microstory. The first public glimpse of that vision came in 2009 with the Vision Efficient Dynamics concept. Unveiled at the Frankfurt Motor Show, the crowd was stunned. A low-slung, glass-heavy, butterfly-doored spectacle that looked less like a prototype and more like a dream plucked from the pages of a sci-fi comic. Journalists wondered aloud if it was even real, or if it would fade away as just another showpiece. But BMW insisted the concept previewed an actual production model, setting in motion one of the most ambitious projects in its history, Reflection Bridge. The decision to turn fantasy into reality was risky. but it revealed BMW's intent to lead. Follow. Microstory. Behind closed doors, engineers wrestled with compromises. Instead of fitting a massive V8 or V10, they chose a compact three-cylinder turbo engine derived from BMW's small cars and paired it with an electric motor. On paper, it sounded underwhelming compared to supercar rivals, but the goal was not to chase brute power. It was to prove that lightweight design, torque from electrification, and careful aerodynamics could deliver performance in a new way. This was heresy to traditionalists, yet thrilling to visionaries. Context digest. The use of carbon fiber reinforced plastic for the i8's passenger cell was a statement. While supercar manufacturers had flirted with exotic materials for decades, BMW sought to make it part of a mainstream production car, a leap of faith that required massive investment in new factories and supply chains. This commitment was not just about weight savings, but about signaling seriousness. The i8 wasn't a gimmick. It was a technological spearhead. Microstory. As the launch drew near, BMW carefully orchestrated the narrative. The i8 was positioned not as a direct rival to established supercars, but as a futuristic hybrid sports car for a new era, one that combined efficiency and excitement. Celebrities and trendsetters were courted, from Hollywood premieres to global fashion events, ensuring that the i8 would be seen not just as a car, but as a cultural symbol. For many, its butterfly doors and glowing blue accents were enough to make them forget about any doubts regarding horsepower. Reflection bridge. But once the i8 hit the road, the real test began. Could it live up to its radical promise? Microstory. Early reviewers praised its head-turning design and futuristic cabin, noting how every angle seemed sculpted for maximum drama. Driving impressions revealed a car that felt quick, agile, and innovative, though not in the traditional muscle-bound sense. Some admired its composure and balance. Others lamented that its performance didn't match its visual aggression. The split in opinion created a fascinating dynamic. Was the i8 ahead of its time, or merely pretending to be? Context digest. Sales numbers told their own story. While not a mass-market car, the i8 moved enough units globally to be considered a success for a niche hybrid sports model. More importantly, it drew younger audiences to the BMW brand and helped reposition the company as a forward-looking innovator in electrification. It became a halo car, a symbol that BMW could experiment and push boundaries in ways few competitors dared. Microstory. On red carpets and city streets, the i8 became instantly recognizable. Athletes, actors, and tech entrepreneurs flocked to it, using it as a rolling statement that they were not only wealthy, but also progressive. It wasn't just another Lamborghini or Ferrari. It was something different, something that whispered future instead of shouting tradition. Yet beneath the glamour, the debate simmered. Was the i8 truly revolutionary, or was it an expensive detour on the road to full electrification? Transition. That tension between perception and reality, between daring ambition and technical compromise, sets the stage for how the i8 would evolve in reputation and influence, and how it would ultimately be remembered as more than just a futuristic toy. As the years passed after its 2014 debut, the BMW i8 began to take on a life of its own. Not just as a machine, but as a statement about where the industry was heading and how consumers responded to radical ideas. In showrooms, it attracted people who might never have considered a BMW before, pulling in buyers who loved technology, design, and symbolism as much as raw performance. It became a car for early adopters, the kind of people who bought the first iPhones or lined up for Tesla reservations, individuals who wanted to be seen as part of the future rather than the past. Microstory. One striking example was how the i8 found its place in popular culture. From blockbuster films to celebrity Instagram feeds, the car was everywhere, often outshining vehicles that were objectively faster or more expensive. Its butterfly doors and glowing blue accents became shorthand for modern luxury. Unlike some supercars that carried reputations for excess, the i8 projected something cleaner, smarter, and almost utopian, which fit the aspirations of a generation eager to show success without being tied to tradition. Context digest. Yet this cultural buzz masked an important reality. The i8's hybrid system, while innovative, was quickly being outpaced by pure electric technology. Tesla's Model S was proving that fully electric cars could offer both range and blistering acceleration. Competitors like Porsche were preparing their own electric flagships. In this shifting landscape, the i8 seemed caught in the middle, neither as efficient as a full EV nor as powerful as a traditional supercar. Its uniqueness was both its strength and its vulnerability. Microstory. Engineers at BMW refined the car over its life cycle, releasing special editions, improving battery capacity and tweaking features. Owners who lived with the car discovered joys that didn't show up in spec sheets: the futuristic dashboard, the distinctive whir of the electric motor blending with the growl of the three-cylinder, the way heads turned at every stoplight. Yet they also encountered frustrations: limited trunk space, modest electric range, and questions about whether the performance justified the price tag. These mixed experiences added to the mythos, painting the i8 as a car of contradictions. Reflection bridge. For some, those contradictions made it more human, more interesting. For others, they exposed its flaws as a stepping stone rather than a destination. Microstory. BMW never intended the i8 to outsell mainstream models. Instead, it was meant to serve as a halo car, a proof of concept. In this sense, it succeeded brilliantly. The knowledge gained in carbon fiber construction, electric integration, and aerodynamic design flowed into other projects. Even critics admitted that without the i8, BMW might not have built confidence for the electric M cars now arriving. In hindsight, the i8 wasn't just a product but a testbed, and the world was watching. Context digest. Market forces accelerated the conversation. By the late 2010s, regulations in Europe and China were increasingly pushing manufacturers toward full electrification. Hybrids were no longer cutting edge. They were transitional. What seemed radical in 2014 began to look compromised by 2019. And yet, because of its design, the i8 maintained an aura of futurism even as its technology aged. That visual timelessness gave it staying power that numbers alone could not. Microstory. Owners became ambassadors, forming small but passionate communities online. They debated modifications, shared charging hacks, and compared experiences of living with such a distinctive car. Some treated the i8 as a daily driver, enjoying its comfort and surprising efficiency. Others parked it as a weekend toy, a centerpiece of collections. Over time, resale values stabilized, and whispers of it becoming a collectible began to grow louder. What was once questioned as a gimmick started being reframed as an icon. Reflection bridge. This reappraisal wasn't just about nostalgia. It was about recognizing the i8's place in the broader narrative of automotive evolution. Microstory. BMW ended i8 production in 2020, marking the close of a 6-year chapter. The final units, many finished in unique colors or special trims, quickly became coveted. Enthusiasts realized they might never see a car quite like it again, a plug-in hybrid supercar that dared to look like tomorrow, but lived in an in-between era. Collectors began to treat it not as a failed experiment, but as a snapshot of ambition during a pivotal moment in history. Context digest. In retrospect, the i8's influence spread beyond its own sales. It pushed conversations about design bravery, about whether sustainability and aspiration could coexist in the same product. It gave BMW a platform to test ideas that would later inform mainstream models. Most of all, it proved that customers were willing to embrace radical concepts if they were wrapped in beauty and vision. And that insight, more than raw numbers, defined its success. Microstory. Today, when enthusiasts look back at the 2010s, the i8 stands out. It wasn't the fastest nor the most efficient, but it symbolized a bold leap into uncharted territory. For younger car fans, it became the poster on the wall, the car that looked like no other. For industry insiders, it was a reminder that risks can shape reputations in ways that safe choices never do. Its legacy is still debated, but its silhouette remains unforgettable. Transition. And so we arrive at the deeper question. What does the i8 story mean now? In an age where electric supercars and hypercars are rewriting every expectation, and how does its legacy resonate in a world that has finally caught up to its vision? Looking at the i8 from today's perspective, when electric hypercars boast over 1,000 horsepower and mainstream EVs sprint to 60 faster than yesterday's exotics, it's tempting to see BMW's futuristic hybrid as a quaint artifact. Yet that view misses the true significance of what the i8 accomplished and why its legacy continues to matter. It was never about dominating performance charts. It was about bridging imagination with reality. and proving that sustainability and desire could share the same frame. Micro story. One of the most compelling aspects of the i8's afterlife is how it has become a collectible sooner than expected. Cars that make bold design statements often age quickly, but the i8 defies this pattern. Its flowing lines, sculpted aerodynamics, and butterfly doors still look like they belong to the next decade rather than the last. Collectors recognize this, and as the market increasingly values uniqueness and historical significance, the i8 is rising as a symbol of a transitional era when the auto industry dared to experiment. What once felt compromised now feels pure, a snapshot of vision untainted by the total dominance of EVs. Context digest. Industry experts often point out that the i8's role was less about volume sales and more about proof of ambition. By investing heavily in carbon fiber production, BMW not only gave the i8 its lightweight body, but also accelerated its knowledge base for future cars. By exploring hybrid drivetrains in such a dramatic form, it prepared itself for the wave of electrification that would follow. These investments weren't wasted. They laid groundwork that ripples through the company's lineup today. Micro story. Owners who have held onto their i8s often describe them as rolling art. The driving experience, while not as brutal as modern EVs, offers something that pure numbers cannot capture. The interplay between the turbocharged 3-cylinder and the electric motor, the sound of one complementing the silence of the other. For some, it's a reminder that transition technologies carry their own beauty, offering flavors of both worlds. That duality now feels nostalgic, even charming, in an era when silence dominates electric performance. Reflection bridge. In this way, the i8 has shifted from being judged against supercar benchmarks to being appreciated as a cultural artifact, a bridge between two ages of automotive history. Micro story. Automakers today study the i8 not to copy its exact formula, but to learn from its bravery. The decision to mass-produce something that looked like a concept car was itself a seismic move, showing that consumers would embrace radical design if the story behind it resonated. That lesson now informs how brands present their electric flagships, wrapping new technology in emotional appeal rather than dry efficiency. The i8 proved that vision matters as much as velocity. Context digest. It's worth remembering that when the i8 launched, skepticism ran high. Critics wondered why anyone would pay supercar money for a 3-cylinder engine paired with limited-range batteries. Yet those criticisms fade in the face of hindsight. Today, nearly every performance brand is pivoting toward electrification, and many employ hybrid strategies to blend power with efficiency. In that sense, the i8 wasn't an outlier. It was an early scout, mapping terrain that others would later claim. Micro story. Enthusiast communities now celebrate the i8 in ways that echo how past icons were rediscovered. Just as cars like the DeLorean or NSX gained appreciation after initial skepticism, the i8 is experiencing its renaissance. At car meets, it draws crowds who are intrigued not by stats, but by its presence, by the fact that it exists at all. That is the measure of a future classic, a car that captures imagination simply by showing up. Reflection bridge. The i8's journey reminds us that innovation isn't always about immediate domination. Sometimes it's about planting seeds that bloom long after the initial spotlight fades. Micro story. BMW itself has moved on, focusing on electric M cars and an evolving i lineup, but insiders often acknowledge that without the i8, the path forward would have been less daring. It gave the brand permission to dream out loud, to take risks that might not pay off immediately, but establish credibility. This willingness to stretch beyond comfort zones is part of what keeps BMW in conversations about the future, not just the past. Context digest. In the broader sweep of automotive history, the i8 illustrates a truth about transitional technologies. They may seem temporary, but they serve as essential bridges. Steam gave way to gasoline, carburetors gave way to fuel injection, and hybrids like the i8 are giving way to full electric. Each bridge carries lessons, failures, and breakthroughs that shape what comes next. The i8's role was not to be perfect, but to be brave. Micro story. Ultimately, when people look back at the 2010s, they will see the i8 as one of the decade's defining cars, not because it set lap records or sold in millions, but because it dared to be radically different. Its silhouette will appear in documentaries, design retrospectives, and nostalgic conversations about how the future once looked. It stands as a reminder that sometimes the most important vehicles are the ones that challenge assumptions rather than conform to them. Transition. Which brings us full circle. The i8's legacy is not measured in horsepower or sales figures, but in how it shaped imagination, influenced design, and proved that ambition itself can be a kind of performance. The BMW i8 began as a radical dream, grew into a tangible symbol of innovation, and ended as a bridge between eras. And now its legacy continues to spark conversations about what it means for a car to be more than just transportation. From its daring design to its unconventional engineering, it forced both enthusiasts and skeptics to confront their assumptions about hybrids, performance, and the very definition of a sports car. Looking back, the i8 tells us that ambition matters, even when it produces something imperfect, because ambition moves the industry forward. Without experiments like the i8, the pathway to today's electric supercars might have been slower, less daring, and certainly less beautiful. The i8 showed that customers are willing to embrace bold risks, if those risks are wrapped in vision. And it proved that cultural resonance can sometimes outweigh raw specifications. Today, as the world pivots fully toward electrification, the i8's blend of gasoline and electric feels like a snapshot of a pivotal moment, when the future was close but not yet fully here. For collectors, it is becoming a cherished artifact. For BMW, it remains a proud chapter in its story. And for enthusiasts, it serves as proof that performance can evolve without losing its soul. Perhaps that is the most enduring lesson of the i8, that the cars we remember most are not always the fastest or the strongest, but the ones that dare to reimagine what's possible. Thanks for riding with us on Boost Bureau. See you next time, automotive enthusiasts.